Do you want to start multiboxing frigate abyssals and do not know what setup is good to start with? Then here I have a good setup to start with two cheap Retribution and a cheap Deacon to do tier 3 electricals. If you have never done any multiboxing of frigate abyssals, I recommend that you check out my guide how to multibox frigate abyssals first. In that guide I'm gonna explain all the basic things like sequence tagging, setting up EVO preview and more. I'll link it in the description. And these are the fits that you can use. On the left side you see the Deacon. Deacon has 3 remote repairs in the high slots, AB and cap battery in the mid slots and full tank in low slots, and in the rigs it has a CCC rig and an EM armor rig to get more tank. The Retributions are beam laser fit with a remote armor repair to repair the Deacon if it gets damaged. Medium slots are AB and cap battery, low slots multi-spectrum coating, reactive hardener and a thermal coating as well as 2 heat sinks. Then you have the rigs, an EM rig and an energy burst aerator for more DPS. And that Retribution requires a 1% CPU management implant, assuming that you have all the fitting skills at level 5, because otherwise it won't fit. If you are new to multiboxing frigate abyssals, I recommend starting in tier 1 to learn all the basics of multiboxing frigate abyssals, the things I mentioned in the guide of how to multibox frigate abyssals. And when you learned all the basics of multiboxing, then start working your way up to tier 2 and then to tier 3. With this setup you can do up to tier 3 electricals. For higher tiers I recommend using other setups. Check out my YouTube channel for other setups for higher tiers. For example like Nord Retribution and Deacon for firestorms, or my recently posted Pulse plus Beam Reti combination for electricals. Now we're also gonna look at some important rooms when you multibox frigate abyssals, and the first important room is the room with a lot of neut, Vedmax and Damaviks. This also shows why it is easier to learn the Abyss in electricals than in other weathers, because there you don't have to worry too much about neuts, especially neuts with a low cycle time like those from Vedmax or battleships like Lashx or Drainer Marshals, etc. You always want to make sure to kill any neuting NPC as fast as possible, to make sure that it doesn't neut out any of your damage ships or your Deacon, because then you lose your tank and then you most likely end up dying. So always kill neut NPCs first. In this case it's a starving Vedmax or starving Damaviks. Another important room where you have to pay attention are the Kikimoras. The Kikimoras do not switch targets once they have selected one target. So you want to make sure to move a Retribution first and not the Deacon, because after that there is no way to de-aggress the Kikimoras from the Deacon. They will always shoot it until it dies. so make sure to move a Retribution first. And with this setup you can tank a few Kikimoras in tier 3, but if there are even more Kikimoras, then you should actually put all repairs on the ship that takes the aggro plus the remote repair from the auto Retribution if that doesn't hold enough. But the setups I have for higher tiers are fitted to be able to fully tank a room of like 12 to 14 Kikimoras. But the important to know in that room is that once they aggroed, they will not switch targets after that. And the same also applies to the rogue drone frigates and rogue drone battle cruisers. And this room are Charybdis Tyrannus, but the same strategy also applies to any other battleship room like Deep Watchers, Lashx or the Overmind. There you want to keep transversal as high as possible to the battleship to avoid any wrecking shots. If you get the wrecking shots with this setup in tier 3, then it isn't a too big problem because you should be able to have enough tank to tank wrecking shots, but in higher tiers, if you don't have a lot of buffer, then a wrecking shot can alpha your frigates. And you also want to kill any webs, newts or target painters as fast as possible, because that lowers the application from the battleship. Like in the Charybdis Tyrannus, you want to kill the entanglers and illuminators as soon as possible, as well as the dischargers. And in the Overmind there are snarcasters and spotlighter drones that weapon pay that you want to kill as early as possible. Also in battleship rooms you want to avoid getting into a blue cloud at all costs, because the blue cloud multiplies your signature radius by a factor of 4, which is basically 4 times the tracking for the battleships if you are in a blue cloud. This drastically increases the chance of getting a wrecking shot or hit in general by the battleship. And that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. Maybe you try this setup if you want to start learning multiboxing frigate abyssals. Also, when you buy stuff from Marquee Dragon or the Eve store, use the code GUSTAV because it helps the channel and CCP gets a little bit less money. And in the description you find links to my Discord and Twitch.